And that's not the original, isn't it?
The original.
Oh, that's a cover. Actually, you can take it down because I can't hear you over the song very well. Ben, I'm so professional at this.
Oh dear. You've taught me well.
True. Tell me about the kids really quickly.
Yeah, they're going really well. Ezra's turning 1 in September, like just after Christmas. Crazy. Yeah, he's so cute. And Rose is 2 years, 10 months-ish. So she's got awesome personality. So much
She's coming up to 3, right?
Yeah, 3 in Feb. I was telling Rose just before you jumped on in the B1G1 conference in 2018 in Singapore. That's when we first told the public about Rose.
Yep. Remember it well. Yeah. We need another one of those. Oh my goodness.
Very long.
This is the greatest show. Oh, look at that. Lots of people in the waiting room. Oh, they're rolling. Florentia, by the way, you know Florentia, she's in the Zimmer, we are right on 10. There you go, Flo. There you go.
Oh. How good. Oh, yeah. Well, all righty. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Actually, on the East Coast of Australia, it's now all afternoon. So good afternoon, everyone. And I've been looking forward to this webinar with my very good friend and mentor, Paul Dunn, for months now. I think we booked it in with quite ahead of time. And yeah, I guess one thing I sort of shared with our team beforehand is Paul. I know he's probably going to blush, but if there's one person who's had the most impact on my own business journey, it would have to be Paul Dunn. And I even sort of did some work with a coach around my own business journey, career, even life, and his name was mentioned on that significantly. So I'm really honoured to host a webinar with Paul, to be sharing all about why your business needs a brand new story and why it's important right now. And before we jump into that webinar and I introduce Paul, I do want to touch on some future webinars we do have coming up in case they pique your interest. And Paul, you may recognise a guest who's just joined recently. But cool. The next couple of webinars on the 11th of November, we're going to be holding a webinar all about, are you doing the best you've ever done? Like, what's next? Now, the whole context of that, I know that there's been a bit of negativity around this whole pandemic and all of that. But what we've noticed is that, yes, there is some industries that have been hit extremely hard. There's businesses that have been closed. But what we're seeing is the absolute majority are actually doing okay, well, or there's even a good portion of them doing amazingly. And so we're going to have a webinar focused on those businesses who need to make the most of the conditions that they're in, that they're already doing well. How do you even do better than that? What do you need to keep in mind from a tax perspective and accounting perspective, and keep an eye on, even from a capacity perspective as well. So, there's problems for growing businesses. So we're going to cover that sort of stuff as well. So that's that one there. The link will be in the chat box for that one. Also, we're coming into Christmas. So we're going to host a webinar on Christmas parties and tax. And in particular, one of our most watched videos in the past has been how wine is tax deductible, or how you can make wine tax deductible. If you're interested in knowing that, and a whole heap of other stuff about, can you claim the Christmas party and things like that, we've got a dedicated webinar on that. We'll have some resources coming out after that to run through too. And then another good friend of mine, John Hollenberg, and I, we hosted our first event together in 2014 in the Inspire Cafe, actually, Paul. We held that there, and John's going to join me again on how to create a kick-ass website that actually works. And I think that the goal of that is that actually converts as well. So John's amazing. He's built a number of websites for us. We're launching a website 2 days before that webinar and almost using it as a bit of a showcase. So super excited there. And again, the link is in the chat box if you do want to register for that one. But we're here today with I'm going to say legendary Paul Dunn. I've known Paul since 2013. Since meeting through a mutual friend. And
I remember that well.
That was a very interesting way that we met. But Paul's a 4 times TEDx speaker. He's the chairman of B1G1, which I think we're hopefully going to hear a lot about today as well. And just a very impressive business mind. So I am going to hand over to Paul now to talk us through, why we need a new strategy right now.
Oh, thank you, Ben. And there you go. Well, hi, everybody. What I'm going to do quickly is share my screen in a rather interesting way. At least I hope it's a rather interesting way. And Ben was talking about it before. There you go. You should be able to see me right there, sort of full screen. Apparently, there's a bit of a delay with some of the stuff, but hopefully not too much. Anyway, Ben, thank you for that lovely welcome. I am absolutely stoked to be here. And when I look at the participant list, I'm stoked at who's here as well. So just awesome to be doing this. So good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Of course, where I am in Singapore, it happens to be a morning still. So you are in the future. And funnily enough, what we are going to talk about today is the future. By the way, what a thrill it is, Ben, to be with you and the team. Rose there as well. Just awesome, because as you say, way back in 2013, we could never have imagined all the great things that you have achieved. So many, many congratulations. And of course, those great things are not just in serving clients. By the way, that reminds me, I didn't think of doing this. Just pop in the chat with a Y if you are currently a client of Inspire. Go ahead. We are going to spend a lot of time in the chat, by the way, so you may as well get used to it now. Let me know in the chat, just with a Y. There's Wendy. Well done, Wendy. Well done, Shari. Carol. Oh, but you're still here anyway, which is great. Hopefully that might change. Kevin, good to see you as well. So, Anna B1G. Oh, Andrew, indeed you are. Indeed you are. So good to see you all. And of course, those of you, Andrew just popped up there. By the way, make sure when you do your chat, that your chat is going to everyone, not just host and panelists. Just use the little drop-down box. And as you would have seen just on your screen right there, Ben and the team are doing some amazing things, like over 10 million giving impacts at this particular point in time. And as a result of our time together today, we are actually going to create more. So where we are then is to look at a new story for your business. And by the way, what I want to do, aside from saying thank you for being here, I want to thank you for making the choice to be here, because I understand there's lots of things, conflicting as to what we do. And so well done on making that choice. And interestingly enough, on your screen right now, you can see another word called moments. And Ben, someone mentioned to me not that long ago that moments and choices are interesting, because if you think about it, then where we are, every one of us right now, where we are in our business and our life, this guy said, is a result of the choices that we make at the various moments of our life. And so bearing that in mind, one of the things that I've tried to do today is to create a whole series of interesting moments for you and that seriously inspire, and some interesting choices that I hope you'll make so that you can really take advantage of those moments that we will be creating. Now, so that you get the most out of this, you'll see in the right-hand corner of your screen a notepad. You are going to get to need, or you are going to get to take lots of notes. By the way, that also reminds me, it's a good idea too, because we're going to do some drawing, just to flip that notepad on its side. If I could see you, which I can't, but I'm going to imagine you waving your notepad and your pen at me. And do get it out, because I promise you, these drawings that we do, you are seriously going to want to keep. You really, really are. So we're going to do that and close all the windows around you, not the windows in your work from home office, but the windows on your system, okay? So that everything runs at a smoother rate as possible. So I want you to focus, as Sir David Attenborough did yesterday, in case you haven't seen his amazing 7-minute speech at COP26, on the word story. I just want you to focus on that for a moment. Because, as Ben said earlier on, we're going to talk about why we all need a story. And about 20 weeks ago, I really got sort of focused on this whole story thing. And I got focused on it because someone sent me a note talking about the guy you see in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, that is, say, Steve Jobs, or to say Steve Jobs. He said this: the storyteller is the most powerful person in the world. Now, you can ignore that sort of power play, if you like, because the second part of this is actually the most powerful part. The storyteller, he said, sets the vision, the values, and the agenda for an entire generation yet to come. And the magic for me, Ben, and everyone joining us, is actually in those words that you can now see highlighted in yellow: for an entire generation yet to come. So the story, oh, and by the way, this is not about how you tell stories. That's not what today is about. It's how you create stories. Because yes, Jobs was a fantastic storyteller, but what gave him the power to do that was the stories that he helped create, which go on and change our lives. So when you think about this for an entire generation yet to come, what's going to be happening today is, as you change up your story, which then inspires others to tell their story, that's the story that they tell their kids and their kids' kids as well. So there's just some enormous ripple things that come from this ability to create a great story and to be able to tell that story. And by the way, just in terms of where we're going today, this is the most interesting, or and again, a really interesting point. When you really, really get it, you begin to understand that this is not about this is not about your story in a sense, because when you go as to where we go, you suddenly get that the story is actually not about you. The story, as you will see, it becomes about something much bigger than you. So it's worth staying around to get this. Now, what Ben has allowed us to do is to kind of play with that a little bit. I mentioned earlier on that we are going to spend a lot of time in the chat. And one of the things that we want to do is to reward you for the time you spend in the chat with us. So on your screen right now, you'll see 3 projects. They happen to be B1G1 projects. And I want to talk through them just very, very quickly, and then give you let you know why this is there. Above that first one, you will see the letter E. That's because, as you can see, that's a project that gives kids around the world, kids in need, access to game-changing education. And today, and every time you put a chat message in today, if you would then put an E, a space and an E at the end of your chat message, guess what happens? A child gets access to that game-changing education. Now, you might also be concerned, who isn't, with what's going on in the climate side of things. So when you, on your chat, you put a space at the end of your chat and then you put the letter T, guess what? We're going to plant a tree just because you did something in the chat. And by the way, this is not one chat, right? It's like you can keep doing this throughout our time together today. And if you're across all of these things, you would also know that there are 780 million people right now who do not have access to something we take for granted. That's called water. So courtesy of B1G1 again, when you put the word W on the end of your chat, then guess what's happening? People are going to get access to life-saving, pure, clean water, all because you put something on the chat. Ben got it. So did Ferencia, except what we want you to do is put a comment on as well. So here's the idea, just to make sure everybody's clear. You simply add the letter of your choice at the end of each one of your chat messages. And by the way, I want you to put in lots of chat messages because that lets me know that you're focused on what we're doing today. Oh, look at that. Woohoo, chat more. Well done. Okay. So let me give you a little practice. I want you to put in the chat the town that you're at. Where are you? You can be as specific as you like. We don't need to know your street address, but then an ETW after it. Go for it, right? I want to see everybody. Andrew in Sydney, Ben in am I saying it right? Terranora. Wendy, thank you for joining us all the way from Sydney. Newcastle, the Gold Coast is Shari. Byron Bay. New venture fund started there yesterday. Matt, up there in Port Douglas. Oh my goodness. Pakenham in Victoria. I guess you were following the Melbourne Cup yesterday, Leah. I'm told a horse called Very Elegant or Elegant won that. And Lee, we're not sure where. Oh, you put a T on the end of it. Okay, you're getting the idea. And we will keep you posted as to the numbers. So make sure you keep doing it. Now, Ben, I've probably seen maybe 12 or 15 or so chats. There are many more people online than that. So if you haven't yet done that, stop whatever it is was taking you away from this and come back here and pop something up on the chat. Do it. You will absolutely love it. So with that in mind, thank you, host. With that in mind, let's get to this big, big issue of story. When you think of story, there's various components of your story. There is, of course, his story. There is, of course, the story that you've been creating and the story that you've been telling and living in 2021. A very different story than most of us could ever have imagined. And what we're here to do today, together with Ben and the team at Inspire, is to create a brand new story. In fact, not just to create a brand new story, but to co-create with you a brand new story. And it's a story so that you make more impact. Once you create this story, not just tell it, but when you create it, we're going to get you to do that so that you can make more impact in our world and on your business than you ever imagined possible. Now, as you read that, and I know it's a bit soft to read it, but what I want to know is whether you are up for that. So type the word up in the chat and make sure you put an E, T, and a W and all those sorts of things if you are up for us co-creating. Well done, Wendy. Definitely says Ben. Up with an X mark says Ben, exclamation mark. Shari Carroll is up with a T. Lots of T's coming from Leah as well. Shari, well done. And Rose, well done. Now, if you haven't put it in there, I'm going to assume that you're not up, which is not a very good assumption. So make sure you pop that up in the chat. Sean, well done, well done. Up with 3 exclamation marks. Very, very good. And Robert is up as well. Robert, I notice on your message, you sent it to host and panelists. So next time you do that, you might just make sure you want to use the drop-down box so that everybody can see that you are up and that you said a W on the end of it. Well done. Now, of course, every story has a hero. Right? It also has a guide. And in a sense, what we're doing today is being your guide in that story. So our simple goal today is to make this, just these 50 minutes we're going to be spending together here, a magical, magical moment for you, just as was that magical moment when King Arthur pulled Excalibur out of that stone. And there's never been a more important moment than now to do what we're doing in creating this story. This is the understatement of the day, isn't it? Our world has changed, and it's changed dramatically. And I'm not just talking about climate change. There's so many other things that are going on. It's changed dramatically. And of course, what COVID did, as you saw, was accelerated some of the impacts of that change. And because that change has happened, and because we're all noticing it now, because you can't ignore it anymore, then guess what? Because of that, our businesses need a new story in order to play in this different world. And we need that story, I would suggest to you, right now. Hence the reason that we are here. So I mentioned we're going to do some drawing. So if you would, this is a rather complex drawing, but just everybody do it now, a little rectangle, well, actually quite a long rectangle on your pad, and you can just put 6 lines across it. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Bring the fax machine guy to Australia. Exactly, Susan. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you divide it into 7, I think is the way that works. So make sure you've got that. Now, because I'm doing this on my machine, my Mac, I can do things that you might find a little difficult to do. So don't bother about the coloring. But go to the top. What we're talking about on the left-hand side as you're looking at it is where we were. And on the right-hand side, we're talking about where we, please listen carefully, where many of us are, but where we all must be, okay? So this is a very significant move right up top, the move from income-driven to impact-driven. The next one, even more interesting, from being profit-led. And by the way, take a look at what that's done. From profit-led to purpose-led. Those two things, by the way, are not mutually exclusive. In fact, as you'll see in a moment, when you do the thing on the right-hand side of your screen, guess what happens? More stuff happens on the left-hand side of the screen in terms of profit. We have gone from this whole thing around treating everything as a transaction, rather than treating the people whom we are privileged to serve as belonging to something. We all have this need to belong. In these uncertain times, we also have a need for certainty, and that's one of the reasons why belonging is so important. We need to move from pushing to attracting. This is how you don't spend so much money on Facebook, because all that we've been doing in this time past here is like pushing ads, all of this sort of thing. What we need to do is stop that. And we need to be both attracting customers and attracting team members. I'll give you a little diagram on that in just a moment. So hopefully that's all making sense. Value, of course, is really, really important, but now we're in a different time. Our story now needs to be, yes, about obviously creating value, but really what we stand for, our values, are now so much more important than they ever were. And by the way, maybe you want to select your clients on a shared value basis so that we're all believing the same things. And then this one, moving from inputs to outcomes. Ben knows that in that first meeting we had in 2013, the meeting was, all about timesheets. You will remember that, Ben. And so what we need to move to is not time-driven, but impact-driven, and focus on the outcomes that we are providing for those we are privileged to serve. Hopefully this is making sense. Don't put that in the chat yet, because I'll give you a moment to do that in just a second. This one is probably the most important one. It's about moving from me to we. That if the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we are all connected. We are all connected. And so this division that comes from thinking it's all about me is really causing lots of issues. And so we need to move to the reality that it is all about we. And what that means is the final little thing on our diagram, and thank you so much for taking all those notes, that we need to move from focusing on self to focusing on something bigger than self. And when we do that, the story becomes incredibly compelling, as you will see in just a moment. Now, I've given some names to the left and right-hand side of this, which actually are some names that I hope you'll write down so that you really get the journey that we are on. And the journey that we are on is from standard, that is the stuff way back there, and that some people are living today. From standard, there really are, in a binary sense, two types of companies. There are standard, and then there are those that stand out. And where Ben and I are heading today is that this standout thing becomes your new story. Now, let me give you that in a slightly different way, because here's nice alliteration. So where we are moving is we are moving from standard to stand out because you stand for something bigger than yourself. And we're going to have a look at how you do that in just a moment. And by the way, one of the things that we see in businesses around the world that are part of B1G1, and they're B1G1 business for good, just as Ben and the people at Inspire are. That is a great definition of or a great example of a standout. Now, what actually happens is, and I know there are some accountants, hi Rick, on our web event today. So the good news is I'm going to get into some numbers for you in just a second. But the good news is that when you stand out as a business for good, guess what? It's actually good for your business as well. Let me give you an example of that from a report. And I'll show you the report, and then you can tell me whether you'd like a copy of the report. It was done by Deloitte about 7 weeks ago, actually. And here's the report. It's a really, really interesting report with all sorts of numbers on it. Right now, we're not going to go through all of those numbers, but basically what this is saying is why, when you're a business for good, good things happen in your business. Lots and lots of numbers on there. So let's just take a look at some of these numbers, and you can just write down the big ones right here. Take a look at this. 78% of customers were more likely to remember you when you have something that is bigger than yourself, right? When you are on purpose, if you will. And that 78% number comes up a couple of times as well. What about this one, though? This one is so interesting. Look at this. A 40%, as near as damn it, in their survey, a 40% price premium when you are doing things that are good for us, for not just good for you. Interesting. And what about becoming a magnet for talent? Well, have a look at this. 8 out of 10 people, again, as close as we can, 8 out of 10 indicated that they prefer to work for someone who really is a business that is a business for good. And interestingly enough, the study, and again, it goes much deeper than this, that some people, look at that, would actually take a pay cut. Interesting, to work for a company that is purpose-driven. And although with Ben, of course, you're building your business and building your assets, then one of the things that you might start to consider is exiting the business. Well, interesting enough, there's a very significant difference. It's hugely significant between businesses that are on track, businesses for good, on purpose, and exiting, and businesses that aren't. Here's what the report found. Look at this. A 4 times difference, 4 times in terms of the valuation, which is just staggering, absolutely staggering stuff. Now, you might want to get into the depths of that report, which I would recommend. So it's all about standout, right? But if you would like a copy of the full report, it's 20 pages, then put a Y or an S, or sorry, Y or a YES up in the chat. And of course, put an ETW on the end of it, and Rose will send you a copy of that after our time together. Steve, you said yes, but again, I hope we've got everybody on this. Shari, well done. Kevin, of course, of course. Ben, be a thrill to send it to you. Yes, and Ben was also very gracious and put a please in there as well. Well done. And I see that Parentia is up. Oh, that was the last question, not this one. But anyway, so yes, please. Now, again, if we're not seeing them in the chat, make sure that we are, and make sure that you put an E, T, and a W in there as well, because there's more people on here than are on that chat. So again, make sure you get up there on the chat. So the whole idea then, let me iterate it again, is from moving from, thank you, Steve, from standard, oh, you can only put one, you can't say ETW, Steve, that doesn't work. You've got to, if you put that in 3 separate messages, it works, right? But ETW, no.
Steve joined us after we went through that, but
oh, okay. So Steve might even not know what ET and W are about. Steve, when you put E on the end of it, kids get access, kids in need get access to education. When you put a T on the end of your chat, we plant a tree for you, which is sucking out the carbon. And if you put a W there, then kids, one of the 780 million of them who do not, thank you, Matt, don't have access to water, they will get access to water as a result of you just putting a W on the chat. So stand out is where we are. And that's, again, look at the alliteration. It's standard to stand out because you stand for. And we're going to show you how to do that in a minute. But remember the quote back when we were talking about Steve Jobs and the quote about the storyteller? The storyteller, again, remember, it's not just about telling the story, it's about creating the story. You're setting the vision, the values, and the agenda for an entire generation yet to come. Just think about that. For an entire generation yet to come. That's why this is so important as businesses lead the charge on this. So if this is making sense, you can just put a yes, or making sense, or resonating, whatever it is you want. Make sure you put an E, T, and a W. Matt, I hope the puppy is now well fed. So just a yes on that would be good. Wendy, you've got it. Look at that. Wendy Wood with a W. Of course you've got a Wendy Wood with a W. And Carol, you got a T. Florentia's there. Thank you, Florentia. Florentia, by the way, is diligently counting all of these. Deep thinking, it is deep, but goodness me, it's time to get deep, isn't it? So, and to have fun doing it. And you're going to see exactly how we can do that in just a second. In fact, let's have a look at that now. You see, when you do what we're suggesting, is that this is a very simple way, right, of expressing what the Deloitte report says. So draw a triangle. And you don't need to put anything in the middle, right? But on the left-hand leg right there, you put people love to buy from. That's essentially what the Deloitte report said. When you become on purpose, when you become stand out, then people love to buy from you. And you become a magnet for talent. People want to work for you. This is a triangle that you should put up in on your whiteboard or wherever it is, right? So that you get how important this story is. And what happens is when you're that, then people look to you. Of course they look to you because you're standing out, because you stand for. And people respect and recommend you. So as a result of that very, very simple, thank you, Andrew, as a result of that very, very simple little triangle, guess what happens? Have a look. So, well, what happens is when more people love to buy from you, then profit and growth would generally be the result of that. When people love to work for you because of where you are in your story, then guess what's happening? They are getting engaged and they are getting connected in a way that they've not been engaged and connected before, because you're standing for something more than the dollars that come in the door. And that's so, so critical. You saw the Deloitte numbers on that. And then when people respect and recommend you, have a guess what happens? More profit and growth. So when you do this, it is good for business. We wanted to make sure that you really understand that. And there's something else that's kind of interesting as well. Remember that little phrase about you set the vision, the values, and the agenda for an entire generation yet to come? A way of thinking about that is legacy. Now, when you think about legacy, most of us think about leaving a legacy, right? But the reality is that we don't have any control on the fact that we're going to leave one, right? We're all going to leave one. But we do have some control over what that legacy looks like. You know, is it a legacy of consumption or is it one of contribution? Now, interestingly, you remember the alliteration, right? Because you move from standard to stand out because you stand for. Well, you can do another little alliteration with the L. Most people think about leaving a legacy, but if you just draw a triangle, I'll show you two other ways of thinking about that, which I think are much more important than worrying about what you leave. And that is to live it every second, every day, in every way. And then to leverage it, just as Ben is doing, for example, by having this web event, to leverage it. And to think that we're doing that for an entire generation yet to come. Pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? And just what I want you to do is just, I said it's pretty powerful, right? But, and it's, you know, I'm getting a lump in my throat sharing all of this with you. But just imagine, if you will, the impact of that. I mean, just imagine it, right? And just imagine the impact of living it every day. You can, you know, this is not, oh, let's go to a sort of a charity ball or something, right? No, this is every day. Now, the two words that I want you to just imagine are those two words, just imagine. Because in a moment, what I'm going to do is take you through, in fact, why don't I do it now, is take you through a little sequence that is just imagining. And what I want you to imagine is on the left-hand side, we've got you. And you notice it says good for you, right? Now, what if when you think about your business, not as like, you know, some big thing, but when you think about the tiny little things that go on in your business, for example, good things, right? Good things that happen. When you make a sale, when you win a customer, when you get paid on time, when you get a referral, when you get a testimonial, when you get a new follower, when you all of these good things, how cool would it be if when those good things happened in your world, that is, say, in the business world, that something great happened in our world as well at the same time. Now, in case that seems like, you know, those are like a weird concept, let's be a little more specific. So let me just run through some examples with you. So for example, what if every time you got a sales lead, a child got fed? What if? What if every time you converted a lead into a customer, a tree was planted? As a for example. In fact, there's some 420 things that you can select from on the right-hand side. What about every time you send an invoice to a customer, someone got access to life-changing e-learning, just as it's happening on the chat today? And by the way, what if that cost you just 1 cent to do? Think about that. And what if every time a customer pays on time, then women who in the African continent are, you know, the people out there doing stuff, they get a microloan to support their new business activities just because someone paid you on time. And what about every time your team hits key targets through the week or the month or the trimester or whatever? A child got access, or a group of children got access to life-saving water. And what if every time you onboarded a new team member, you give bricks to build schools? What if, just imagine all of that happening. And just imagine that, there you go, that every time good things happen in your business, great things happen in our world. Pop in the chat how you would feel, together with just one word. How would I feel? I'd feel amazing, says Ben. I would feel, Carol says, just imagine. I really want to know how you feel. So come on, tell me how you feel. Ben, thank you for that, with a W as well. You feel, or now B1G1 members are saying, well, I don't need to feel it because I'm actually experiencing it, because that's what I'm doing. Carol says inspired. Exactly, Carol. What else? That's satisfied, Wendy. Yes, satisfied. Feeling fulfilled, says Ben. Yes. We should have had another F in there for food or something, Ben, so you could have alliterated the feeling fulfilled. From the lost generation to the, yes, Sean, that's profound. Exactly. We would feel, would we not, that we seriously were a business on purpose or a business for good. and our businesses need to do that. Driven, oh, Robin, that is so cool. Robin, you've actually sent that to hosts and panelists. If you want to put that in so that everybody sees it, that is, there you go. Robin said, driven to have more moments of good. Living our legacy, says Wendy. Compassionate, says Robert. Yeah, some really good stuff in there with a T on the end of it. Thank you, Robert. Okay, and what if, just imagine, let's keep just imagining, if every single one of those impacts that you're making were measured, were tracked, and displayed, your choice to do this, by the way, proudly in real time on your websites around the world. Now, you probably know when you go to the Inspire website, you can see great examples of this, but let me show you some other examples so that, yes, Robin, thank you, the driven to have more moments of good. So let's just imagine what all of this looks like. And by the way, thank you again for all of those chat messages. And it's just so fun to see. So let's do, oh, by the way, what about, this is what about, you know, we talked about leveraging it. What about, what would happen if you were a promotional goods company as a matter of interest, and when something good happened, whatever that was that you were doing, the client shared in that, or the customer through one of these things called a gratitude certificate. Let me just blow that up for you. You know, so imagine someone dealt with you and specifically, and then you get this. Specifically want to thank you for being a client. Well, you can read all of that, but the thing that I love down the bottom, thank you, Susan. It says, we're thrilled to be serving you and we're especially pleased that we can do something great when we do business together. Think about the leveraging effect of that. Our simple goal here, this is you now, is to keep on making great things happen in our world together. Imagine the different kind of connection that you would get by being able to do this each and every day. So again, what we're talking about is business, being a business for good, stand out because you stand for something. By the way, there's one word that I want you to take a note of, and that is, or two words actually, I want you to take a note of the phrase impact driven. The reason I want you to put impact driven on there is you would know that a lot of people talk about a thing called purpose washing, where, you know, they go and they go, oh, what's my mission? What's my vision? And they, you know, spend so much time creating, you know, all these words together, which in some cases become just words. So what if we were able to find a phrase, this one I think is it, that it's much more than that. It's actually all about the actions that we are taking and the impacts that we are creating. Because once we think about the impact, then guess what? We can measure that impact. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. In fact, let me show you two. Here's one in South Australia. Just put a Y on the chat if you can see that. It says perfectly placed for doctors. I hope you can see that. There you go. Thank you, Shari. And the only reason I said to put something in there is so that we can put a Y and a T and a W or whatever else it is. So thank you, Ben. Getting more education flowing. Okay, so this is run by James Hill. And you'll notice on the top right-hand side there, in fact, let me just run this for you and talk you through it. You notice where it says contact prescript. Given that you're not watching on your iPhone, you'll be able to see it. So let me just blow some of these things up. There's a phrase up there or a tab up there which is called impact. So let's go have a look at the impact tab. When you hit that tab, get a look at what you see. We are an impact-driven company. Just imagine the impact of that. We are a business for good. And then what they believe in, this is their goal, right? And this thing you're seeing here is a B1G1 widget where we are tracking literally every single giving that they do. You'll notice how they've got various activities here. Remember, this is the left-hand side. And here's how they display it. They're on their impact pages. This one is kind of interesting. They talk about the impact of the water, just as Ben does. And yes, they proudly display that logo because they are part of B1G1 Business for Good. By the way, look at this. Unlike conventional giving models, B1G1 helps small and medium achieve more than social impact by embedding the activities into everyday business operations and creating unique giving stories. We're going to have a look at that in just a minute. Every business transaction can impact lives. That's what this is all about. They talk about how B1G1 works. We don't need to do that, but there's what James says about it, the owner of that particular business. And look at this. They've even got a giving manager, much like Rose at Inspire. Now, Rose does lots of other things, of course, but from time to time, like maybe 20 minutes or so a month, gets involved in the whole giving activities. And you can see how this becomes very, very central to them. Why? Because they're a business for good, which is actually very, very good for their business as well. And of course, you can just zero in and take a look at their impact on the global goals. So I just want to show you some examples of this so you really, really get what we're talking about here, right? It's very, very different. Let's go across to the United Kingdom so you can see another way of doing this. This is a company called Headway. Now, these guys have been in B1G1 for, I think, about 4 or 5 weeks, not very long, okay? And so let's have a look at their website. And by the way, it's not difficult to build. So you can see that's how long they've been in business. Now, they don't have an impact tab. I wish they did. Theirs called, so, 100% of all contributions go directly to the initiatives by doing business, because business is more, you see all of that? Making impact globally. There's the widgets. That's just a single copy and paste. They support the global goals, of course. There's the global goals, which is giving, in a sense, a sort of a proof thing. And look at this. Look at these giving stories. Look, this is up there on the website, and you can just, it's so cool. It's just a simple copy and paste. You can actually, these are some polls they've been doing and letting their customers determine where the giving is going. And look at that. In real time, the customer is actually seeing exactly what's happening. So this is not sort of purpose washing, okay? This is impact driven, which makes so much sense, particularly to your team as well, because they're seeing this at least every month, I would suggest. And that's why it really does create an amazing amount of engagement and so on. So you can see all of that. And of course, not surprisingly, you can get to see the global goals and various other things that are up there on the website. Let's go have a look. Oh, yeah, these guys have some interesting clients. I don't know in Zuzo, but I do know Virgin Money. And so look at this. This is how it's described. Look at this. Those of you who are not B1G1, look at that. It's not about the money that you're giving. It's truly about the impact that you're creating. I'm going to show you later on exactly how you do that, given that we have time. So time for talking of time for you to feedback. So let's have a look at those two things right now. And let me know if this is, if this not just resonating with you, but you look at that and you go, you know what, that's me. I really want us to be in on this, right? So the word in would be an appropriate word right now. Now, we're not going to grab your credit card or anything, but just let us know if, although you might want to put it in later, that's up to you. Ben says in, of course, he's well in. So let me know if this is making sense to you with it. Ben, thank you. And make sure Carol is in. So many ins. Wow, that's so good. Shari, so lovely to have you in as well. Very, very good, guys. Awesome. And whilst you are thinking about that, now those of you who are in, right, really good. I imagine the other guys are out, which is okay, right? It's okay. This is not for everybody, nor was it designed to be. But if that's you, then please don't feel that you have to stay around to the end of our time together. Of course, I hope you will, because you're going to see some other interesting things happening right here in our final couple of minutes together. Ben, I'm not sure that you're aware of this, but some of our members have recently been talking about B1G1 in an interesting way. They've been saying things like, oh, Amazon for kindness, or Amazon for good, or an operating system for good. And let me just illustrate, if I might, what that actually means. So if you think about Amazon, what do? Let's say I wanted some hand cleaning stuff, right? Some sanitizer stuff. Then what would I do?
I go up onto the website, I make a selection, oh yeah, I need that one. And then a few days later, bang, this is delivered, okay? But and people say that's exactly how it is for B1G1. They zip up on the website, they find something that's there, and then because it's ring fenced, it is delivered in exactly the same way that this is delivered. That's one of the reasons why they relate B1G1 to being Amazon for good. Someone the other day where are they? In Spain, I think, described this as an operating system for good. And for those of you who've said you would like in on this, let me show you what it's like when you are actually in. And so what I'm going to do, Ben, if it's okay with you, is I am just going to, let's see, I might just share my screen slightly differently here. And I'm trying to figure out how oh, here we go. And so that's not going to do it. So what I'm going to do, Ben, is stop the share just for a second.
Right.
And I'm going to go there. Are you okay, Ben, by the way? And I think we're going okay on time. Am I right? We've got about another couple of minutes left. Well, 10 minutes or so. Is that right? Okay. So let's do this. Let me just share my screen slightly differently. And Ben, what you should see right now, or at least in a moment or two, if I get rid of that, what you should see right now is one of my accounts in B1G1. I hope you can see it. Could you just confirm, Ben, that you can see that? Can you see that?
It just popped up now.
You can. Okay. So for those of you who want in, this is what in looks like. Once you're there, you'll notice I've got so many things happening. This is just one of my accounts. The number of projects that I've given to, that's really beautiful. And you can see down here, Ben, from an accounting point of view, here's all the receipts going back to time immemorial down there, the favorite SDGs, project updates and so on. But what I want to show you just briefly is why people are calling this Amazon for Good or Amazon for Kindness. So if I go, for example, to the projects, and what I'm going to do is, assuming that it goes, hopefully it does, and let's just do this. Rather than see all of the projects, all 400 and odd of them, let's just go in and say that one of the things that's important to you is education as for example. So if I hit that, then what's going to happen is I'm going to see education projects up here. I can sort them by all sorts of different ways. Let's take a look at this one. This is an interesting one. This is one, I hope you can see it, which is talking about giving digital skills training to people in rural Australia. And what is so interesting is these kids are now learning and they're playing a part in the gig economy, because it doesn't matter where you are anymore, right? You can learn graphics and get up there on Upwork and sort of sell, your expertise in that particular way. So let me just have a look at this project. Just click on it here for a second. And we can see that we could create a giving story. We're going to do that in a moment. But you can see this gives us just $1 to do it. By the way, this is a very unusual B1G1 project, this particular one, because when you do this through B1G1, that amount actually gets doubled. But you can see that, it's like for $240, you could do it for a year, you could do it for a day, you could do it whatever. But obviously the idea is to kind of crowd fund it and just do it for a little bit. So what we're going to do is, rather than just simply give to the giving cart, which we could do, meaning, please send me one of these things kind of thing, then what we could do is, then we could do it this way. If I just select my camera again, so rather than giving one of these things, then what we might do is, and pop it in the cart, we might just go and create a story just to show you how easy that is to do. So there you see, it's right there already on the right-hand side. And all I need to do is create an activity. Now there's lots of them in here. We might just pick one when, let's say, and you can create these, obviously. I won't worry because my typing is not that good. So let's say you had this as when a potential client completes our scorecard, and you pop that in there, you've now created a giving story. You'll notice you can automate that. But let's just create it. Let's just create it right there. And now what happens, just imagine now you were doing this every week, for example. Let's imagine you weren't automating it, but let's say at the end of the week, you might say, well, how many scorecards have we had? Well, since there are 22 of us, currently, actually more than that, but I'm going to put 22 in there. And all I do, watch, this is the same as doing this, okay? So all I do is I just add it to the giving cart. You'll notice the giving cart goes up by 1. And now I get into the giving cart and there I see it. And I see some other things that have been happening here. You'll notice that when I present a Zoom meeting, for example, or like as in this one, 11 days, kids get 11 days of access. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give, right? And so that you can see exactly what happens. And here we go. It's just actually redirecting so that the giving happens. And so we cross our fingers that there we go. And I see a little note, by the way, please don't copy my credit card number. But there we go. It's now done. At least I think it's done. Yes, it is. And what I will get is a little note that says, well done, and we'll have a look in a moment. There you go. 22 days of digital screening. That's very simple. 70 days of this and 154 days. That's how simple this is. So if, Ben, I'll just stop the share for a second. So if that was the first time through that for you and you thought that was simple, just pop a little note in the chat that says, that was cool, because I don't normally do that, Ben, right? So hopefully people enjoyed that, and it gives them an idea of just how powerful B1G1 really is. So what I'm going to do is just share my screen again. And I want to share with you, thank you, Florentia. Florentia does it so much better than me. But anyway, let me just share my screen again just for a moment. And what I want to do is, there we go. This is a friend of ours. He wrote the foreword for our book, which is called Legacy. This is Paul Polman. And if ever there was a book that you needed to get, now you could listen to David Attenborough's speech yesterday, or you can get the book. The book goes into this much more detail, how courageous companies thrive by giving more than they take. But I want to show you the question that he asks right at the start of the book. It's a great question. Is our world better off because your business is in it? And what we want to do, of course, in B1G1 is to make sure that you can emphatically, and I do mean emphatically, answer yes to that. Now, we have seen a couple of things today. Ben knows this guy. Some of you may know from the KPI program. Let me just play you a little extract from a podcast that Glenn did not that long ago, so that you really get the power of what's going on here. Here we go. So have a listen to this. Hope it makes sense.
Obviously, the list is absolutely endless in terms of giving triggers that you can build into your organization. And so one of the things that we did is we looked at what are the top 8 metrics that we measure in our business. Net promoter score, employee promoter score, revenue, profit, sales, things of this nature. We now have each one of those metrics linked to a giving impact. So instead of my team measuring how many sales are we making, my team are measuring how many impacts are we creating in the world. So it's the same thing. Growth in one leads to a growth in the other, but it just really connects my team to this idea that we're not just here to make money. We're not just here to make sales, and we're not just here to help our clients, right? We're here for something bigger. We're here for something more important. And the fact that B1G1 allows that to be automated, fully vetted, super easy, click a button, bang, and it's done. And it's actually achieved some of the most valuable business goals that not just but I think most business owners have, which is they want a team that really cares about the growth, the success, the prosperity of the business. And there's very much a palpable sense that we're doing this not to just line Glenn's pockets, but to make a dent in the universe. And that is a very, 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 very hard thing to engineer. I don't think it's a thing money can buy. You know, you can't pay a guru to come in and set that scene. However, aligning with the global goals and deciding that your business is going to act as a force for good in the world seems to solve all of those problems. So I'm stoked. It's wild. I'm proud. It's just very, very cool.
It is very, very cool, isn't it? Being this force for good and so on. Hopefully that was very valuable. So you get this whole thing where people say to us, oh, this has transformed our business. And if you think about that, it's like an amazing thing from something as apparently tiny as B1G1. So then let's kind of wrap a little bow around this. And for those of you that said you would like to be in this, let me show you how easy and inexpensive that is to do as well. So we talked about story. And we talked about it this way. We said there's history, there's story, and then there's your future story. And of course, what we're doing together with you and together with Inspire in B1G1 is really creating your future story now. Now, if you would like to do that, then all you need to do is just pop, you can use a camera or you can just go to b1g1.com/join. And you can see how easy this is to do. In fact, let me talk you through how easy it is to do. And Florentia, if you just want to put that link in the chat, that would be really, really cool. And of course, anybody who wants to put a Y in the chat together with an E, a T, a W, that would be really, really cool as well. So Florentia, if Florentia's going to pop that in the chat, oh, she's going to put the official version. Mine actually works as well. Or you can just scan that thing there. So let me take you to what happens when you do that. Well, one of the most important things that happens, by the way, that was the number from yesterday, 261. That's like more than 250 million impact from this tiny little idea. And of course, you'll be joining 3,000 plus others around the world and connecting with them whose businesses are a force for good as well. When you click on that link that Florentia is telling you, this is what you will see. You will see be a part of something bigger. Remember, we talked about how we needed to have this or this idea of standard to stand out because you stand for. You'll see the membership options. And as someone said the other day, when I think about B1G1 as like an operating system for good, I compare it with Dropbox. I compare it with Xero, as in I pay like a monthly thing to get this done, and it's really, really cool. Someone in the charity space the other day, a consultant, said to me, oh my God, she said, I charge people $70,000 to do this analysis. So you don't have to do anything like that. Unfortunately, in B1G1, with the larger companies making it easier for the smaller ones. So what you do is you just select where you are in terms of revenue. These, by the way, are US dollars, as you can see. So let's imagine you were that definition of small business. You were in US dollars. Then you would click that. And then you would simply see this. You could see that you can join annually, which is the smart thing to do because you save some money, or you can do it monthly. Now, you're going to need to take a note of something very special on this upcoming slide. Whichever way you choose to do that, you will get a little thing like this, which says you choose your membership package. Now, on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see Hive 001. You see where it says referral code? Make sure you put Hive 001 in there. And the reason is that kind of, thanks, Florentia, that kind of connects you into Ben's Hive, right? The Inspire Hive. So you're connecting at a subset, if you will, of B1G1 as well. So it's really, really cool. Then all we need is your details, as you can see. And then, by the way, what actually happens when all of that happens. So someone said to me, what happens when I join B1G1? I said, that's when the love really starts. You will be amazed at what happens when you do this. We think of those giving things as smiles. And already there have been more than 250 million of those smiles. And what we're suggesting as we think about the news story for your business is that we add some more. Not just yours, but also those around the world who really need us in this time. So Ben, oh, I'm coming back live, the looks of it. There we go. So Ben, thank you for letting me do this. I hope it's been fun. And let me stop my share. And let me also say thank you to all of the people on the chat who've been doing some wonderful things. So Ben, back to you. And thank you for having me as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, yeah, just while we're all still here, I'd just love to everyone pop a bit of a message back to Paul and yeah, just with your sort of final comments or thanks with the E, T, or W at the end again, just for one last giving from us all. And yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Always so good to connect with you. And thank you so much for giving us your time. P.S. I don't think we can see you anymore.
And then we should just acknowledge you, because someone might think, where are all those E's, T's, and W's coming from? The answer to that is from the man you're seeing on your screen, who looks like he's piloting a plane right now. Ben, thank you for making this all happen. Super good.
Thank you very much. And yeah, for those who'd like to join us on one of our future webinars, I'll just pop the next one on
Yeah, do.
the screen here, which is, are you doing the best you've ever done? What do you do next? So that one is on Thursday, the 11th of November. Thanks, Flo. Appreciate that. But that is it from us today. Thanks again so much for joining, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you, everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you, Kevin. So lovely. Really wonderful. Awesome. And thank you, Flo, too. There we go.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Oh, Ben, your DJ skills are coming to the floor again.
We'll get better.
Thank you, Kevin. Really lovely. Really lovely. And if you're still there, and there are about 10 of us still there, hi. And by the way, if you have no questions, then just say, Dan, I love that comment. Thank you so much. Just say NQ, which means no questions or whatever, okay? And get ready to pull Excalibur out of the stone. And have some amazing moments today as well. There we go.
Hey, did you see Bradley Smith in there? Or
Say again?
you see Bradley Smith in there? Still here.
I didn't see that. What are you talking about, Ben? Sorry.
Oh, Bradley Smith is one of the guests in.
Oh, Bradley. Yeah. Super good.
Yeah.
Super good. Super duper good. And Ben Young, thank you too. There's too many Bens, Ben. And John, oh, that's so lovely of you. Very, very cool. We like cool money for all sorts of reasons.